At least one person was killed and more than a dozen others were injured in overnight Russian strikes targeting several Ukrainian cities.
Trump says President Zelensky is not ready for a peace deal with Russia after 3 days of talks between US and Ukrainian delegations in Florida. Euronews caught up with Margarita Shinas and Luigi Di Maio to talk global politics at day 2 of the Doha Forum in Qatar.
At least one person was killed and more than 15 others were injured in overnight Russian strikes across Ukraine. A civilian was killed as Russian forces targeted several areas in Dnipropetrovsk, including the city of Dnipro in the early hours of Monday. Local officials say a barrage of drones and artillery was fired across the region, damaging residential buildings, private homes, and civilian vehicles. At least 7 people were injured in the northern Sumy region after it sustained heavy strikes which started late on Sunday and continued into Monday. Several floors of a 9-story residential building were severely damaged in the strikes. Officials say some residents were trapped inside the damaged apartment building and were rescued by emergency workers. Rescue operations were reportedly temporarily suspended, however, as officials feared repeated attacks were incoming. The adjacent Chernihiv region also came under heavy overnight Russian shelling, injuring at least 3 people. One person was hospitalized after sustaining moderate wounds after a Russian drone exploded near a residential building. The blast shattered windows and caused damage to the building, parked vehicles, gas pipelines, and nearby stores and shops.
After 3 days of talks between US and Ukrainian delegations in Florida, Donald Trump says Zelensky is not ready for a peace deal with Russia. Speaking to reporters at the 2025 Kennedy Center honors, he accused the Ukrainian leader of holding up the talks from moving forward.
And I have to say that I'm a little bit disappointed that President Zelensky hasn't yet read the proposal. That was as of a few hours ago. His people love it, but he hasn't. Russia's fine with it.
However, Russian President Vladimir Putin hasn't publicly expressed approval for the White House plan. Trump was the first president to hold the Kennedy Center honors, a role normally assumed by journalists and presenters. He says he did so, quote, at the request of a certain television network. During his speech, he praised Sylvester Stallone, Kiss, and Gloria Gaynor, among others.
The Liberal candidate Ciprian Ciucu has been elected mayor of Romania's capital, Bucharest, receiving around 36% of the vote in the local election. His opponent, Anca Alexandrescu, a journalist supported by the hard-right Alliance for Romanian Unity Party, received around 22% of votes.
Vreau să fac din București proiectul vieții mele. Și asta nu pentru termen scurt, ci pentru termen lung. Pentru că orașele care se schimbă cu adevărat au nevoie de primari care să stea pe termen lung primari și să-și poată pune în aplicare viziunea.
The election came after former mayor Nicu Sordan was elected president earlier this year, leaving the position open. The mayoral office in Romania's capital is politically significant, as 2 former mayors later became the country's president.
The new mayor of Bucharest has some difficult tasks ahead. First of all, he must solve the problem of the heating system. After that, the problem of the traffic and the pollution. And he must do that in a complicated political situation with our government caught in the middle, a coalition made by 4 parties.
Euronews sat with the former Vice President of the European Commission, Margarita Shinas, for an exclusive interview in Doha, where he provided insight as to what the renewed peace efforts might yield in embattled Ukraine.
Europe has to continue, as it did from day one of the invasion of Russia to Ukraine, continue to seek a positive contribution that would eventually lead to a peaceful settlement. We have done a lot for Ukraine. From day one, we have been funding Ukraine with 2 billion euros per month. So in a way, Ukraine keeps fighting because Europe keeps paying. We have bought armament for Ukraine. We have stood by the country in very difficult diplomatic moments, and will continue to do that. We hope that as a result of the ongoing talks and with the increasing involvement of the US government, we will be able soon to come to an agreement. But if this moment comes, this would be only the beginning of the next stage. It will not be the end settlement. It will be the beginning that would eventually lead to a final settlement.
Euronews also caught up with Luigi Di Maio, the EU's special envoy to the Gulf, where he shared with us how the region could advance the bloc's competitiveness in an increasingly unstable geopolitical climate.
I think that the more we will realize that we have to continue to work with our historical allies, but we have to create new partnerships, the more we realize, we accept that, the more we implement in facts, not only in words, this new idea of projection, having at mutual level new partners, the more we'll be closer and the more we will face together not only the multilateral political challenges, not only the security challenges, but even the economy, the prosperity for our people. Together, these two markets, the GCC market and the European market, together they represent the 20%, almost the 20% of the global economy, almost the 18% of the global trade. So we have a huge potential, so it means even that we can reach a huge leverage together, a joint leverage.
The two European Union politicians were in the Qatari capital to attend the second day of the Doha Forum. Thailand has launched fresh strikes along the border with neighbouring Cambodia. The Thai Ministry of Defence said that more than 35,000 people have left areas near the border for shelters, and more are believed to have fled to stay with relatives elsewhere. Meanwhile, Cambodia's information minister said that several border villages have been evacuated. Both sides accuse each other of violating a US-backed ceasefire agreement put in place after fighting between the two erupted in July.
The Interior Minister of the West African nation of Benin has said that a military coup, initially announced on Sunday morning by a group of soldiers on state TV as successful, was foiled on the same day.
Au petit matin de ce dimanche 7 décembre 2025, un groupuscule de soldats a engagé une mutinerie dans le but de déstabiliser l'État et ses institutions. Face à cette situation, les forces armées béninoises et leur hiérarchie, fidèles à leur serment, sont restées républicaines.
The group, which called itself the Military Committee for Refoundation, appointed Lieutenant Colonel Pascal Tigre as president of the military committee. Benin's president, Patrice Talon, has been in power since 2016 and is due to step down next April after the presidential election. The attempt is the latest in a series of military takeovers to rock West Africa over the last few weeks.
U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth defended the strikes on alleged drug smuggling boats in the Caribbean and emphasized that President Donald Trump can take military action as he sees fit to defend the nation.
Here again, we've been focused, and here we've been clear. If you're working for a designated terrorist organization and you bring drugs to this country in a boat, we will find you and we will sink you. Let there be no doubt about it. President Trump can and will take decisive military action as he sees fit.
Hegseth has faced growing scrutiny over an attack in September in which U.S. forces launched a follow-up strike that killed survivors of an initial hit on a suspected drug vessel. The incident raised concerns over the legality and oversight of the operation. Hegseth says he had not been present when the second strike was ordered, but defended the decision, saying he would have made the same call himself.
iskustvu našem dugogodišnjem zimskoga kupanja i proučavanjem stručne kao i znanstvene literature možemo reći da su benefiti veliki. Prvenstveno jedna poboljšanje cirkulacije, poboljšanje rada srca, rad pluća, znači elasticiteta krvnih žila, što je vrlo bitno, pogotovo kod starih ljudi, jačanje imuniteta u zimske razdoblje.
Danas su nam se pridružili opatijski kukali koji će zajedno sa našim gostima sudjelovati u tradicionalnom zimskom kupanju u moru. Posljednje vrijeme sve veći je interes za zdravstvenim turizmom i upravo se naš grad po tome izdvaja.
Wir neu geboren. Wir jung.
Wir schwimmen auch zu Hause im Wörthersee und da ist das auch ein tolles Erlebnis, im Meer zu schwimmen.